Happy New Year, everybody. 2025 is upon us, as are Conan and Ronan. Hello, gents.
Hi, Joe.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Many happy returns. Is that what people say?
Say something.
Is that what people say?
I sit there and say no. You got to wish.
Are you going to sing the song? What?
No one knows the words.
Oh, no.
I would love to learn the words to that song. Every year comes around, I'm like, I need to learn.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a generational thing.
Yeah.
I feel my parents could blast it out now. No problem. But no.
Oh, Lang Syne, is it?
Yeah.
Such a beautiful song. What even is it called? Like you're saying words there, I'm not sure what you're saying.
I'm not saying it again. I said it with such little confidence the first time.
So, yeah.
Oh, Lang Syne?
It's a little poignant, I find.
Oh, big time.
Deep into that evening, another year gone. We're a little bit older.
New one just begun.
Indeed. When that beautiful, beautiful tune starts, I wouldn't tear up, but I don't. It's not ecstasy. I feel a certain
Although, yeah,
a wistfulness, even for the moment I'm in.
Wow.
No,
It's a depressing thought, but I kind of. Can you be nostalgic for a moment you're in? I'm sure the Germans, I'm sure, have a word for that.
I've never felt more sane. I feel like you've really encapsulated a feeling I have every year.
Yeah, I feel
It's really like
very sad when it's on.
there's this very potent sense of like this doesn't come around very like these are finite or something like that, is it?
It's the finite. It's time passing. This is a song about people not with us anymore.
Oh my God. Happy New Year.
Everybody's singing this song right now. Far from a guarantee we'll all be here next year. This is a precious moment. And instead of enjoying the moment of, well, at least we're all together now, I just can't help but be shot down with, this is so finite. I'm watching the grains of sand dropping.
I think that's what it is. Like I was in the King's Head in Galway for New Year's Eve, and it's like it's almost like 12 before you even realise it's a new year. That's probably a better way of doing it.
I think it is. I'm the so as everyone's singing that song, I'm standing there not singing, just watching, as if I've travelled back through time and I'm just watching, going, God.
What? You're watching like, instead of next, like, we're all going to be here for the last.
Instead of living and being in the moment, I'm looking at it going, God. The human condition's a difficult one.
Yeah, the only way I can relate to that is being in a changing room and a manager says, this team will never be together again.
It's true.
Most of the time you're thinking, thank God, that guy's a bollocks.
Phew, heavy start to 25.
Yeah, just try and lighten it up again.
Yeah, I think good choice. So, yeah, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. But like, people always, you'll see like a lot of posts and all now, but like, you don't need a new year to have a resolution, or you used to say it before the new year, or like, come around in February or March again. Like, when did you start right now? But we're obviously programmed that way as well once a new year starts.
Nice to have a reset.
And the existential thing as well that we're feeling. It's like, yeah, okay, let's make this year the one.
Yeah. And I think we are more affected by the seasons and our surrounds. And so obviously there is something in... the good folk at Newgrange knew there was a significance to this time of year.
I have to say, it took me a good decade to shake September being the start of the year in my head. It's
like the football?
No, because of school.
Oh.
New pencil case, new me. You know what I mean?
That's a proper football man there.
You meant the new season.
No, I meant school, because it's like the summer's over.
Yeah.
Back, here we go into this churn again.
There's nothing like buying stationery.
Oh, big time.
It's a reset.
Oh, yeah. But it happens at the start of the year now as well, where you get a fresh 2025 notebook.
Will anyone make a resolution as a matter of interest? Have you given it any thought? Don't reach for one if you've nothing.
No, I haven't.
Yeah, I haven't either.
I'm not in the habit of making them, to be honest.
Same. Yeah. Will you?
I do, yeah. Like I normally do, and I normally don't get round to it. But it's nice to have a thought at the start of the year that I'm going to do that this year.
Well, the point of this episode, as well as causing existential angst, is to bring you through some of our interviews from the last couple of months. We're going to start with Paul McGinley, who I really thought was absolutely exceptional. Exceptional here, so good. He came to studio. There was no real hook for it, bar I had seen he was in town for the launch of Dermot Gilleese's book, also an interview with Dermot in your feed about his life and times and book. And I said, listen, I see you're in town. I know you're not around often. Could you pop into us on the way? And he said, I'd be delighted to. And so he came in, and there is a huge amount of good golf chat here and his career, because he's having very interesting post-golfing career. But very early on in the conversation, I think the question was like, how are things? And his father, Mick, came up. Mick is battling dementia. Paul's mother has passed away in the last year, 18 months as well, I think. And so post-COVID, really, he's kind of just said it's been a difficult time for his family at large. So his mother, Julia, like I said, has passed away. His father, Mick, is having a difficult time. And so here is the brilliant Paul McGinley talking to us. Where do you spend most of your time these days?
A bit of everything, Joe. I'm lucky to have a number of places I can reside in, and Portugal is a place I'm spending more and more time in, and Ireland. Mum and Dad's health has been really poor since COVID, so my mum passed away last year. My dad's still suffering strongly with dementia, which is a huge burden on everybody in the family. We've not put him in a home. We want to keep him at home. We got great help in, and as a family, we're rallying around him. And I take him out for lunch. Had him out to lunch today, and he loves going out and just seeing people and people recognizing him and stuff like that. So spending time here, and obviously in America too, with my TV work in America, which kind of I'm moving more away from Sky and more towards working with NBC over the last couple of years, which has meant more time in America.
Yeah, is your dad still in his family home?
Still in his family home, the same home we all grew up in. Okay. Yeah, 3-bedroom, semi-detached house in Rathfarnham, and
that's obviously very important to the family to try and keep him there as long as possible.
Absolutely, he'll stay there as long as he can. Absolutely, okay. And unless there's medical reasons to move him out, we'll keep him there. He's very happy there. He's contented. He's very well looked after. And we all share the burden. There's 5 of us in the family. I'm the eldest of 5, so we all share the burden in various ways.
Okay. I've never had to deal with it close up, thank God. It just seems nightmarish.
It is, because Dad was a people's person. He loves people. He loves going places. He never drank alcohol in his life, just never took a fancy to it. But he would stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning drinking tea and
chatting.
Chatting, and he had a sweet tooth. He still has a terrible sweet tooth, but chocolate biscuits and cups of tea and chatting, and he's always been a people's person. And it's a real shame that he's 85 now, and I meet people and they tell me they're 85 or 6 or 7 or even in their 90s, and they're still so strong with it. And Dad would love to be around all the stuff that's going on now. And as I've more time to spend with him, I could be doing really fun things with him. But we're restricted that now. He's in a wheelchair now and he can't walk, and it's tough. Anybody who's battled dementia will know it's a horrible, debilitating illness. He looks great. He looks terrific. He's the same Mick McGinley that everybody knew him. And some people will come up and not know, and but straight away they can tell quite quickly that there's obviously a challenge there. But he's always happy. There's never angst. There's never rows. He's very complicit, and he's a good man.
Yeah. And so when you two were out for lunch at the golf club, is there still a shorthand there? Are you still able to reach him? He knows it's you, or is it beyond that point?
Yeah, okay. No, right. Absolutely. We have a van now that you can put the wheelchair in the back and strap him in. So I can. What I try to do, Joe, is when I'm on duty, as I call it, on duty, and I'll take him to golf clubs. I think that's where he ignites the most. I'll pick him up around 11 o'clock in the morning or 11:30, and we'll go to Portmarnock one day, we'll go to Royal Dublin the next, we'll go to Grange the next. I'll go down to the K Club another day, down to Nace where he played most of his golf. And he loves being recognised. A big smile on his face because he still sees faces and he can recognise faces. And just to see him, the joy when somebody that he knows comes up and how are you doing, and he loves it. Has a little bit of lunch and he listens to the conversation. Sometimes I've got friends with me, and every now and again he'll crack up laughing because he'll get a joke or he'll get a one line that came.
Okay, well that must. It's horrific. Obviously, there's no real silver lining to it, but that aspect must feel special still, and all the more precious, perhaps.
Yeah, and that's why we want to keep him. Fortunately, we're in a good position financially to be able to keep him out of a home and keep him at home in his own home. Yeah. And he's well looked after. We've some Filipinos in looking after him. They're amazing. My sister does Trojan work as well too, and all my sisters do. And my brother lives in Dubai, and I'm overseas all the time. So we try to bob and weave so that everybody has a time. But everybody pops in whenever it suits them as well. But we generally have somebody what we call on duty, who's on main duty, which is kind of lunchtime, and taking him him out for 2 or 3 hours. It's amazing the difference that makes. And I think that's why he's been able to keep on going, because this started COVID, on the back of COVID, and we're kind of 4 or 5 years into this now. And, every year it's decreasing. You don't really see it in front of your eyes. But when you look back to what he was doing this time last year, that's when it hits home how much he's even gone down from last year. Like this time last year, he was walking. Now he can't walk. So there's a deterioration going on all the time. But just, he's a good man, as I say, and there's no angst. And I know that's a lot of people who have dementia, that is a big part of it. And he's never had any of that. He's always been complicit and smiley. And you walk in the house now, and even though he can't say hello, Paul, anymore, he recognizes my face and he lights up that big, huge smile that he's got. Yeah.
And how are you handling that emotionally, that whole process?
It's been tough because we had our mom at the same time. Mom had a horrible thing on the back of COVID called aphasia, which is the one that Bruce Willis has got now. It's a horrible, debilitating illness where she lost her voice. From speaking like me and you are now, within 3 months, she went from speaking like this to zero. And I mean, not a word, just a grunt. And it was so hard because mentally she was perfect. Physically, she was perfect. But then slowly, physically and mentally, she was starting to go downhill as well because we had Dad off the pitch at the same time. So we both of them at the same time on the back of COVID, trying to, learn all of this for the first time. But, I guess we were very lucky. I'm 57 now, and right up through my life to this, up to COVID, we had an unblemished run of good health in the family. And to see, Mom and Dad then both deteriorate so quickly after COVID, that was, it's been a big learning curve, let's put it that way.
And are you the type to say, all right, I'm rolling up the sleeves, and much like a slump in my game or a sporting challenge, I'm just going to meet this head on? Pointy elbows is one of your great phrases. Because I know, me personally, I think I'd be in counselling once a week, and I would think I'm broken by this, and I'm upset by this, and I'd feel woe is me. I think I'd have that in my locker a little bit. Like you seem to be more the other way.
Yeah. I want to learn about it and deal with it, and trying to manage everybody in the family in different ways. I'm the eldest in the family, so I've got some responsibility that way. And trying to schedule things, trying to get the right help in, the professional help in.
So you're pragmatic. You're straight into strategy and pragmatism and all that stuff.
Yeah,
which is, by the way, the only way to cope. I would think if you stopped and thought about it for too long, it could be just overwhelming.
Yeah. It's been a slow deterioration. It started with just a little bit of forgetfulness and then a couple of symptoms, and, then we got him diagnosed, and, it's been a slow downhill. It hasn't been a fast downhill. Now, I know if somebody loses somebody very abruptly, a car crash or something, or some serious illness that happens straight away, that's got its own trauma in its own different way. This has been a slow, gradual decline. And in some ways, that's not so bad compared to the trauma of something happening from zero. But it's not easy. It's not easy. It's a huge toil on everybody in the family, and it's a huge commitment of time from everybody in the family. The middle of your day every day when you're on duty is big. And, my sisters have got kids, and, they're dealing with their own family, and I'm dealing with my own, trying to keep my business going. And my brother is over in Dubai, and he's just started a new business, and he's trying to keep going. And so everybody has got a lot of challenges in different ways. But, we love our mom and dad, and they were great to us. They were amazing parents, and, it's time to give back. And we certainly feel that we've done that. And it's been shared responsibility from all of us. And, thankfully there's 5 of us, so we can share it in some ways.
It's great that stuff can drive family apart as well, though. Resentments. Well, hang on.
We've had our challenges. We've had our challenges. It's not easy. It's not a straight line. Yeah.
Does it feel like more or less than a year since your mum passed?
Yeah. It's amazing. One of the things, have we really properly mourned losing Mom? Probably not, because we've gone straight into managing Dad, even right down to the funeral. We had to manage him around that funeral. We didn't want to ignite things any worse from where he was, and, the wake in the house and stuff like that. And we had to protect him away from that. And we didn't want to cause him any more trauma and try to make things as stable as possible for him. But there was a lot of things that were, sad that went on. He'd go up to bed at night, and he'd put his arm behind him, trying to feel her in the bed and stuff like that. Sad instances like that. Even though he never spoke about it, or asked about her, because he was kind of well advanced at that stage. There was definitely something going on in the brain, because there was, instances like that, that he obviously missed her, but couldn't, speak about it, couldn't eloquate it.
Yeah. Sorry, heavy start.
Yeah,
you're at that tricky point in midlife where loss becomes a bigger factor, and you're going through it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of all come together. We've got some other illnesses in the family as well too at the same time. So it's life has hit us hard in the last 4 years. Since COVID, really, there's been no respite. It seems to be one thing after another. People around us and family and, illnesses and close friends, having serious illnesses as well, trying to help them and deal with that. So life has been tough the last 4 or 5 years. There's no doubt about that. Yeah. So trying to keep everything else going and keeping your business going and everything has been a challenge. Yeah.
That interview, for obvious reasons, registered with a whole bunch of people. Paul, as I said to him in the interview, is probably at that stage of middle age where, again, not to go back to our New Year's Eve conversation overly, but like it's just the reality of life for all of us. He's at that stage where things are being taken away, and it's a kind of awful period in life. But he's handling it, I would say, with great grace and being very upfront about it. And a lot of people were in touch to say, "Wow, brilliant man."
Very powerful chat from the two of you, and like just that vivid expression. You're talking about some songs and lyrics and stuff that can get you going, and somebody like Paul McGinley and the stature that you'd hold him, and talking so humanly and poignantly about his dad reaching across the pillow. Like it's very, very sad.
Yeah.
And like as his career goes supernova, and like to have had the athletic playing career that he had would be enough for most people. Now he's like one of the foremost sports voices, certainly golf voices in America. Like it's remarkable. And then with this, and like again, it's the through line for a lot of our interviewees that they have been very open and giving with their thoughts, and to know that this is the backdrop of what has been an amazing broadcasting career so far. It was very much appreciated that he was willing to share all that with us.
Joe Canning next. So we'll finish this episode with two hurling interviews. Joe Canning first, then Richie Hogan. Canning, again, at a book out, was in good form. He spoke beautifully about his late mother. We're not going to go with that section here on foot of the Paul McGinley section. We strive for maybe something a little bit different, but he spoke really like just beautifully about his mum and memories of her and feeling her presence at certain points subsequent to her death. But another area we thought was of interest, and we'll play it to you now. Joe Canning was obviously a complete prodigy, like a complete prodigy, and therefore he was marked out for some special treatment in the Galway club hurling scene. And so for the very first time, he'd never spoken about this before really, there was and it's a famous photo. If you just do it, it might age your listening of this. Take out your phone there quickly and just Google it. There's a photo of him playing for Portumna. He's a teenager, and the photo you will see is of opposition player about knee cocked, bent at the knee, and about to stamp down. Joe is lying on his back on the ground, face up, and their 6 studs are about to come crashing into his face. And the studs will go through his helmet and cause damage. And this was when he was a teenager playing for Portumna. And he hadn't really spoken about it before, but he did in the book. And so obviously it was something we felt we should talk about when he was in. I don't over-egg the next point, and it may not even be the case anymore, but there was a time, I suspect not least when you were a hot young thing coming through, where you said the inter-county environment was almost a bit safer than the club environment because there were more people around and there are cameras and there's a degree of like lawlessness sometimes about the club. I'd forgotten about the Loughrea 06 match until I reading last night, and then I looked at the photograph again, and there is a photograph, people can see it, of you've been dunted onto the ground and you're lying on your back, and there are studs coming towards your face. There's a knee cocked and it's going towards your face guard, and it's going to go through your face guard and cut you. And it's interesting, you note in the book as well, the video of the incident shows that the player in question took a detour to get to you. He wasn't running over you and you happened to be there. It was a sharp left.
Ball was gone the opposite direction, yeah.
Yeah. So that, I mean, that is vicious, and that, I presume, was as bad as it got. Ollie comes over and one asks, who did it? Ollie, your brother, obviously.
Yeah.
And then second point is, get the fuck up, we got to go win the game.
Yeah.
Which you duly lost.
Yeah.
That's ugly. That's really ugly.
Yeah, it is.
Commonplace. That's right out there, I presume. Or was your experience at club colourful?
No, that was a bit far. Like, obviously, when you're getting stamped on the ground. No, nothing really happened like that any other time. To be fair, but yeah, that's the facts. You can see it on video. You can see it, like the photo paints its own picture. But obviously, the county board didn't think it.
No,
at the time. So yeah, it's strange how anybody I've ever met since then or has been at the match could see it, and the county board didn't. So, and that was the reality of it. And you just had to kind of just get on with it in one sense, because you can't really go, like, yeah, you can complain about it or whatever, but like then you come across kind of like sour, because we lost the game, sour grapes and stuff like that, and that's an easy thing to say as well. But
and you didn't want to be a national sob story either. You know?
No, because that was like, I didn't speak about it until really now. That's the last thing I wanted was, oh geez, poor Joe, and oh, he's crying about it now, and he's not able to look after himself, and
yeah.
Do you know?
Well, you might have set yourself up as a target then. Even
Yeah,
more so,
yeah. So by, I think, staying out of that and not commenting on it, there was that unknown a little bit then of like, how will he react?
Do you remember being like livid about it and disgusted by the whole thing, or as an 18-year-old did you just kind of get on with it and park it?
I got on and parked the actual incident, but the investigation after by the county board, that still doesn't sit right with me.
Okay. As in, how can you see the video footage and
not do anything about it? That's more what pissed me off more so than what happened. Like,
what's your theory on how they could look at the evidence and not take action?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, honestly. Like, there was a few guys involved in the county board that, I don't know, maybe they didn't like us, maybe they just a few friends in high places kind of a thing. But yeah, I still wouldn't speak to any of them. Like, I never had an argument with any, I never like approached anybody like or said anything, but if they said hello to me, they'd know I wouldn't be saying hello back. Like,
right.
Yeah, it'd be that, like,
that depth of feelings there still.
Yeah. Like, the Galway County Board for a long time, it's changed now. It's different now.
Well, we've seen
in the last few years
financial scandal of the last kind of decade.
Yeah. But in fairness to like Paul Bellew and those guys now, in the last few years, I think it's changing for the better. But definitely for the majority of my career, most of the people involved were just there for themselves and not really for the betterment of Galway. Do you know? Yeah,
I do, because it came across, actually, there was another incident a couple of years on where you're appealing a red card and there's emails sent and it's very important to you, and you bump into somebody involved.
The chairman, yeah.
Right.
In the petrol station, and he starts laughing at me.
And he's like, sure, but laughing at you, and I don't think he's opened the email even that you've sent about the situation. And you just feel, hang on, this is not a joke.
Yeah. He was treating it, it felt to me that he was treating it like a joke.
Okay.
Do you know, sure, we'll go down here and just be a bit of crack, kind of a thing. Like.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I got sent off in the wrong.
Yeah. My reputation, my career.
Yeah. We lost the game. It was on the 6-1 news. Mum was watching at home. Do you know, those kind of things that happen, but like, he was treating it like, it's all right.
And to skip ahead,
don't worry about it.
Yeah, one of the reasons you suspect Micheál Donoghue eventually left is he just was a bit fed up dealing with them.
Oh, I'd say so, yeah. Now, that's for Micheál to obviously say in his own time, maybe, but like, I remember under Micheál, we were in Ballinasloe one day for training and the gates were locked. And that's county ground, like. Do you know, I don't know, did we get the keys eventually, or we had to climb the fence or whatever, or the gates, but
sort of amateur in the worst sense.
Yeah, like, he was, for a long time, he had to go get his own funding to, you know, help out with different things. It definitely wasn't a support to the county board as it is now. I'd say he was just, I'd say he was dealing with the county board and going, this is a sideshow like that. I need the support of them. I don't need to be arguing with them the whole time to get this and that. Whereas you look at the successful counties like Ned Quinn with Brian Cody, like they were obviously entwined. John Costello with Dublin. You see the most successful counties, and they have really good guys involved and not looking for, they're not in their own interests, but they're in the interests of Kilkenny and Dublin, and it's the same probably with Limerick now. Like, when you look at the supports they have in the background, it's really good.
Yeah. To round off the club chat, it would be wrong of me to give a false impression, because obviously that's a tough start in many respects, and you're being stitched up, and it's serious injury. In the main, what comes across is Portumna family club. It's kind of like the glue of your life. It's just such a happy thing, and it's kind of magical. You're still trying to tug out.
Oh yeah, it is magical, because where we came from to for what we achieved in that space of time, like we became a senior club in 92, I think it was, and got the first county final in 95, lost it, second county final 2003, won that, and then we're in lost 4, won 5, lost 6, won 7, 8, 9, won 13, lost 14. So in the space of like 10 or 11 years there, it was pretty special time for the club. Like won 4 out of 5 Club All-Ireland finals. Just lost one club. So for like a small, relatively small parish, like there's a town, but like it's a 5 mile kind of radius. I live on the border like of the next parish, and I'm 5 miles outside the town. And the other side of the town, in the town is basically Tipperary. So you kind of have a semi little circle there. So it's not a huge parish. And for us to achieve what we'd done or did in that time it's probably something I still don't fully appreciate, because I'm still playing and stuff. Yeah. But like in 20, 30 years time, it's
be good reunions.
It'd be good reunions, and there's no better boys to enjoy themselves.
A magical thing to do with your brothers and your cousins and your family. I mean, that is special.
Oh yeah, it's there's nothing like it.
Yeah.
Nothing like it. It's like we had great crack as well. Like, we good characters on the team, like with the Hayes, the Smiths, the Lynches, all the boys. Like there was a good few brothers and stuff, but we enjoyed ourselves as well.
Yeah,
like that was huge. Like even at the book launch the other night, there was a good few of the boys there, and Eugene McAtee was our full back, and he was there in the middle of it, and the boys have good crack together still.
Yeah. That seems to never change. Yeah. Every team.
Yeah.
Flicking a switch back in each other's company.
Yeah. Exactly. So
an inside joke from 20 years ago is all.
Yeah, there's loads. There's a good few of them, but they couldn't go in the book.
Couple of moments, by the way, in the book where I think county board officials are shifting touch uneasily. They did not come out of that book well. It was an enjoyable book. He more than settled a few scores in it. There's an entire chapter on media. Yeah. Things that were said about me that were wrong. Things taken out of context that were wrong, and he gives it back to us, which I guess is very much his right. Yeah. Interesting fella, really nice fella. Joe Canning knows his own mind. Quite interesting, I felt, on how I'm not going to diagnose him as an introvert, but the kind of the weight of his fame early on possibly sent him down a route of being a touch more withdrawn, and interesting passages about how when the family hurling business is we've got orders coming in, listen, no harm having you in the shop, it helps. And he's, a few games, I'm not going down to take photos, not doing it. He kind of tried to circumvent the limelight through a lot of his career. Joe Canning was his approach to it. He certainly didn't revel in being famous. Joe Canning was a big part of the book.
Yeah. It's a very honest book, yeah. You talked about the media thing. I was at the centre, not as a centre, but I remember being involved in a bit of that before. He put out a tweet before about one of the journals. I was an editor.
Oh yes, you were telling me about that. Yeah.
And he did like an article that somebody had written, but he put out a tweet sort of really slagging off that journalist and encouraging a lot of people to join in. And I remember, in fairness to him, I got his number and texted him. So he'd take a call, and he said, no problem. So I rang him. I was, very, very nice on the phone, and I was very like appreciative that he took the phone call. But basically at the end of it, he said, no, I'm not taking the tweet down.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I tried. Thanks, you.
He's his own man.
Yeah, he's his own man, 100%. Yeah.
Lots of good stuff in it. One period where under John McIntyre, this is like 08. You know, we're not like kind of in the dark ages. For whatever reason, this particular management group liked lots of meetings. And so after training, there'd be meetings in the dressing room, meetings. And there'd be times where after training, 90 minutes would have elapsed on a weekday evening. Some lads probably having to travel back to Dublin, and the meetings are still going on. Different people having their say, what they're talking about, I don't know. The S&C nutritionist types were saying, this is insane. We can't have them not having sustenance after training. Well, the meetings seem to be so important that, like, well, we're having them. So instead of going to like the local hotel or the sponsor who would put on nutritious, real food, Papa John's was delivered to the dressing room after every training session. And the Galway team, playing against like the greatest Kilkenny side of all time, would be having Papa John's after every training session. And Joe said, like, some of the older players, or Ollie, his brother, like, ballistic. This is insane. But he was like, pizza, nice.
Yeah. It's good to have the time markers for that, because if you told that story, you'd be thinking that must be like 1970s.
It's unbelievable.
It's the modern hurling, like.
I do have to declare an interest. There's an old interview of me still on YouTube that I still get the piss ripped out of me for at the club.
Oh, good. Send it on to the group, will you?
Just talking about how I always have a pizza after a game now, it was saying, and why it was so good for you.
But to be fair, you do see pizzas routinely in Premier League dressing rooms after a game.
Yeah.
Like
League of Ireland clubs as well.
Yeah, it's a quick calorie hit for sure. But I think after every training session.
Oh, yeah. I draw the line of 3 a week.
Yeah. It's like when Messi used to have a margarita pizza and a can of Coke after every game. It's like, that's Messi though.
Didn't like Guardiola try to put a stop to it, but it was like...
I think that was literally, I'm not exaggerating, I think that was like the final straw.
Yeah.
That was really the downturn of their relationship, was taking away the full fat Coca-Cola.
You have to stop this.
Coke Zero, Leo, come on.
Yeah. I always remember Guillaume Balaguer's book. He talked about how Messi was completely ignoring Guardiola, and Guardiola ended up having to speak to one of the coaches or something. What's the problem here? And he said he wants to be treated differently. Guardiola was like, I'm doing the same for everybody. And it's like, well, he doesn't want that.
Interesting. Well, that was Joe Canning. Next, Richie Hogan. So Richie Hogan, much like Joe Canning, another man who knows his own mind. I think that's the really strong characters. McGinley, Canning, Hogan, if there's a theme there. So 2 things. I obviously was reading the book, and I got to the section about the Cathal Barrett red card in that All-Ireland final, and he was on off the ball that week. Whew. Got a little drive-by there. Did not enjoy the interview. No one wants to know what you think. Shut up is basically his thought during the interview with me. Because I was devil's advocating a little bit in the interview. I just kind of thought, and he was not in the mood for some devil's advocating. He wanted, you were right, it's a disgrace you were sent off. So that came up in our interview. It's funny, I wouldn't have actually... brought up the red card against Colbert, but you mentioned our interview afterwards, which you didn't love, so I didn't want to give the impression I was running away from that conversation. The reason I wouldn't have mentioned it is, for me, when I look at your career, it's not like a defining thing. It's not in the first 5 things I think of when I think of your career. So where is it for you? Obviously, you're right about it. You're not happy with the decision. Get up, you weasel, you say to him. You feel like the conversation between James Owens and the linesman initially is like, geez, there's not much in that at all. The blood seems to sway them. And then we also the shock in your body language when you look down and see the red card.
Yeah.
So all of those feelings still very much endure. Does that feel like a big thing? Is that still an open wound? Are you still angry about that, or is that now?
No, a lot of people do say it to me, like at a kind of a nod and a wink, especially people from Tipperary. No, it's not. When you're writing a book, of course, it was huge at the time, and it was very high profile in the sense that it got a lot of media attention. But no, I brushed it off pretty quickly with a bit of stubbornness, for sure. And when I got that transcript, because they're not my words, they are the audio from the game.
Yeah.
I was just, for the first couple of weeks, I was just so pissed off with Johnny Murphy, because I was looking over and I saw that he saw it, and I was like, what have you just said here? And when I saw that, I was like, oh, do you know what? Even just one little piece of justification was enough for me to just brush it off and be like, actually, do you know what? Who cares about this? But I met 2019. I met Shane Lowry at the 2019 football final, which would have been 3 or 4 weeks afterwards. And I was chatting to him, and he was talking about the sending off. But he said, you know now that's not what people will remember you by. He was like, you know that they'll remember you for all of the brilliant performances you had. And it actually didn't even dawn on me until he said it, that would be a possibility.
Yeah, really, right.
Yeah,
okay.
so like,
so that wasn't
I
intense
just
few weeks then. Yeah. Okay.
yeah. But no, I brushed it off pretty quickly. I was absolutely adamant and determined, not necessarily to make up for it, but to have a better day in Croke Park afterwards.
Yes.
That was a big piece for me, because I was working in Croke Park. I was in Croke Park this was the Sunday. I was back in the office in Croke Park on Tuesday. And like, you know, I'd walk upstairs to level 6 and I'm looking at it and I'm like, you know, so that none of that was, you just couldn't write that side of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was definitely a fairly challenging time mentally.
Yeah, I bet it was. You didn't like our interview?
I didn't like you, Joe. The interview was fine. I wasn't in a good mood. All right,
That's understandable.
which I think which I think is understandable. But we didn't like the media at all. We didn't like, you know, we didn't trust or like anybody, and I was a little bit, you know, let's say I was a little bit angry going into it. And I was trying to think clearly, and you kept saying, "Oh, Richie." I knew you thought it was a sending off.
Oh,
I felt
I said it to you. Sorry,
I know you said it. Yeah.
I didn't. What I didn't want to do was do the whole. Well, now, Richie, listen. I think you're a great fella. Some people would say this, and some people would say. Basically, my two options were bring you on and say, "What did you think?" And you said, "Well, I didn't think it was a red card." And I'd say, "Thanks very much. That was great for our 2-minute interview." So I obviously had to push and probe you a little bit.
Yeah.
And I thought it was a more straight up way to do it, to go, well, give us your perspective on it all, let you lay it out. And I said, well, okay, look, I'm someone who possibly does think it's a red. Here's what I saw. Was there an elbow, for instance? But then that prompts you to explain yourself brilliantly. Like, you got a great reaction with that interview. You came across incredibly well, even if you wanted to punch me. And so I'd always say judge the question with the answer as opposed to just the question on its own. It got you to say good things.
Don't worry, you don't have to justify your tactics.
Tactics.
No, at the time,
Yeah.
I didn't care what you thought, right? I wasn't trying to convince you.
And I still don't.
Yeah, so like, it wasn't. I thought you were trying to convince me, and I was like,
I can see that.
whoa. So
I was possibly trying to play. I should have just played devil's advocate instead of actually going, do you know what? I'll step up here and be the one to tell you. Probably.
You did your job brilliantly. But I didn't care about your job, right? Your job was irrelevant to me.
That's fair.
Yeah. So,
but you came across very well, and good words for James Owens and good words for Tipperary at large. Like, it wasn't like a complete woe is me. You were just like, by the way, I just still don't think there's a red card. Like, it's not a red card, which is absolutely a valid opinion. One of the guys, Ronan, on the team said he thinks as the years have gone on, the percentage of people who think it's a red card has gone down, which is interesting. I don't know why he thinks that. I sort of think that may have happened too. That week, people felt it. I thought a lot of people thought it was a red card.
Yeah.
But I don't know. What would people say to you about it now, or would it come up often even? Would you get people coming to you in the supermarket going, and by the way, it wasn't a fucking red card, and then going away with their shopping?
Yeah, that's literally exactly how it works. Mainly in supermarkets. I think, look, there hasn't been too many. There's been a lot of tackles like it since, and there hasn't been too many cards flashed.
Fair point.
There is definitely, and this has nothing to do with this, by the way, but there's definitely a sense in the modern game where Players are going down easy, trying to buy a free, trying to buy a card. And I was at an event with a couple of players recently, and they cited this as one of the, one thing which could have the worst negative impact on the game is players going down a bit. So players hate this, and I just felt you can go down the soccer route and look at what soccer is now, where we're on TV and a guy is going into the box and someone steps on his toe trying to get to the ball, and it's like, oh yeah, there's contact, so that's a penalty, and we get into versus. So you're going down a slippery slope. Does that mean that you go the other way and say, oh look, let's throw a few punches out here and let's say, grand, shake hands and off you go? The game is outrageously difficult to referee, and the more you get into technicalities, the more you're going to tie yourself up in knots. And if you can get a level of common sense approach, which you could never say at administrative level in the GAA, but there should be some sort of a message being filtered down to referees that, look, let the game flow, let it move. And also, the big thing for me was nobody ever questioned that I was trying to make a genuine tackle. That was the difference for me, was, excuse me, I was trying to hit a guy a shoulder and I missed, or he dodged it. It wasn't a sense that I was going to clean a guy out. And for me, the penalty for that was too high.
Okay. It's a very charming way for someone to say, I don't give a shit what you think.
Yeah. Listening back to the interview for posterity, the original one, because I just wanted to check, if we're going to have this interview with him, that I could remember exactly what happened.
We agree on our analysis of this.
It's funny. It's like, I was like, Joe, absolutely, point for point, just exemplary interviewing until you just have one little bite back to him.
I had one more. I'd won too many.
Like, yeah, that's a good point, Richie, but nah, I'm going to go back to what I said first. And
I agree. I watched it back because I was quite like, oh God, jeez. And I watched it back and I was like, this is absolutely fine. This is perfect. And we were done. And then there was one more. Yeah, I still don't think so. Yeah. And that was unnecessary. It's hard when you're live. And I think the real prevailing sense at the time was it was definitely a red card. There's always this thing of like, you don't want to give someone too soft a ride in the back of your mind. But I agree. It's funny. I remember you coming in saying, I've watched it back as well, and it was going so well.
It was actually great.
It was really good.
Yeah.
It was really good. And
it's still great.
There was one too many. And that's where I think Hogan was perfectly entitled to say, no one gives a shit what you think.
Yeah, but like, it's funny, you said to him in the latter interview that we just did, you were saying, it's a great interview, it was really well received, but like when you're the protagonist, it's different. He's not assessing it as a piece of journalism, he's assessing it as it's like a damage limitations thing for him.
Big time.
And it's funny, like a couple of weeks ago people were talking about Mike Dean's analysis of the Manchester derby, and he was like, not in a game like this, mate, I wouldn't give a penny in a game like this. That seemed to be the only argument against giving him a red card. It's like, it ruined the game. Like, you can't send someone off for that in an All-Ireland final. It's like, if it's a red card, it's a red card.
Yeah.
Ironically, there have been fewer of them since then.
No, I think
that should have been a turning point. It actually turned the other way.
I think historically he's been really harshly treated. If that had been a turning point and those kind of things were punished, you'd say okay. But I would say he's had cause to watch matches subsequently and go, seriously? Jesus, I got sent off in a final and that's been let go. It's he's going, like, for me it's a day at work. For him it's, and don't get me wrong, I sweat over each day at work and I want it to go really well. But for him, it's his career and his life and his final. I guess, as we touched on, thankfully for him, he's a multiple All-Ireland winner and there were further great days at Croke Park. So it's not, it doesn't jump to my mind in the first 20 seconds of thinking about his career. It's so much bigger than that moment. Whereas for someone like Liam McHale and Mayo, it's such a seismic, defining moment.
Oh, of course. I remember Sockneil losing, was about a point to Dr. Crooks in a club final a few years back, and Porrick Cassidy got sent off, and I always wondered, like, geez, they haven't been back since.
Yeah.
Like, that's horrible.
And it's horrible.
Yeah. And like, the only thing I would say, not to double down on Richie Hogan, is that in that moment when it's such a big talking point, people do care what you think because you are representing the voice of everybody who thinks the same.
And I did represent the referees, because you have to represent the referees not there, and a fair proportion of people thought it was a red, and I did all that. It's just in a live sphere there was one extra.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not so sure.
No, I completely see what you're saying.
Sometimes you can only see that afterwards.
Yeah, but I don't like the elite players sort of mind. Put your medals on the table. It's like, yeah, but we're having a conversation here. We're at the same level when we're talking. We can talk to each other.
And I wouldn't suggest Richie Hogan is mollycoddled, like with his inner circle. I'm sure he's a straight talker. I'm sure he has surrounded by like-minded people, but I wouldn't be surprised if you were one of the first people around him that said, actually, Richie, I think that was probably a red card. You know,
maybe in hindsight.
he was expecting to come on and be like, pat in the back.
Maybe in hindsight, I was probably the first person who said directly to him. The first one's the referee to have said it to him. But the book's really good. I think he's such an interesting personality character. The way he talks about like how he's kind of mastered his art. You know, this is a guy who was in his lodgings at college, and like the landlord was kind of saying the next door neighbours are like, "What's the banging at 2 a.m?" So him against the wall, Slitter, bang, bang, bang. When he's teaching in Clontarf, and the kids are doing work in class, he's with his hurl in class as the teacher, pinging a tennis ball off the wall, occasionally hitting the odd kid. So he got his 10,000. He weaved his 10,000 hours into every moment he could of his day, be it at school, be it at home in college, you name it. So that was fascinating. But also the relationship with Cody jumps out. And to kind of characterise it in fairly blunt terms, to give this a context, Cody obviously like a pretty cold figure with the players, not their friend, very much their manager. But hey, it was successful. But there was a growing tension between Richie Hogan and Cody, even through some successful years, whereby he felt that lesser teams were getting closer to them post 2012, 2013, because tactically they were doing interesting things. Clare obviously won the All-Ireland the way they did in 13, and he felt Kilkenny were winning games through their superior individuals, their will, their physicality, but really tactically teams were outmanoeuvring them, and it reached a real kind of, as you'll hear, a bad point in the 16 All-Ireland final where it was just 2v2 in the Kilkenny half and Tipperary had at it. And he kind of blamed Cody for that, the loss, that the nature of the loss. But as you'll hear, Cody didn't think too much of Hogan's performance in the final when they eventually got around to talking about it. So that for me was one of the it was a brilliant insight, because we had all looked in from afar at Kilkenny during these years and thought, God, they don't seem to be going in for tactics. It just seems to be win your battle. That's how we do it. That's how we'll keep doing it. Are the players happy with this? Do they see it in the same terms? Hogan did not see it in those terms. He felt we are being left behind and we're getting away with it until we're not getting away with it. So that's the context for this section. In effect, I mean, I was at the game, and I'm no tactician, but it even jumped out to me, God, there's a 2-on-2 in that entire half of the field and there's no protection and Callan's having a good day. And it's not until the start of the next season that Brian Cody is having a meeting with you at Nolan Park, and he kind of brings up the final and says, why do you think we lost the final, Richie? So take it from there.
Yeah, he kind of knew. I suppose he knew I was coming with something. He, as I mentioned, we're completely different in how we would have looked at it. So big moments is what he would have looked at. And I'm not sure whether it was the first, I think it was the first puck out, but it was certainly the first puck out down on top of me at centre forward, and I was marking Ronan Marr, who's a young player and probably looking for a bit of confidence, if you like. And he caught the very first puck out, and he went on to have a really good game. That was directed as that set the tone for the game.
Yes.
And that was a huge reason why we lost. And
that's Cody's point to you in the meeting.
Yeah. And sure, like that just...
You took that really well, I'd say.
I was like, you do those things you absolutely do take personally. And I've there's an element of truth in it as well, by the way. Like, let's be fair. But it took the legs from under me, because I was going in with a plan, or going in with something in my head and thinking, this is how the conversation will go. And then, it's like that Mike Tyson line of everything is going well till you get a punch in the face. And
he gave you a pretty good one, I think.
Yeah, and that's how he saw the game. Right now, there was an element of me who saw it like that too. Like, I love big moments in games, and they're very crucial.
Yes.
But I felt we were ignoring a huge reason as to why we were not getting the performances that the quality of our players would suggest we should have gotten. And that wasn't the only meeting, by the way. I would have had loads of, let's say, 5 or 10 minute words on the pitch where, you know, can we do this, can we do that, or, you know, winter season sort of stuff. But this was a sit down. It was maybe the most dramatic.
So you eventually gather yourself and make your points back about the tactics and a bit more innovation required. And then you sort of say yourself in the book a degree of wanting to have the last word and strong character. You said to him, look, we're on the same page here. If I win, you win. If you win, I win. The difference is I'll do anything to win and you just want to win your way. And then you said, we didn't have a meeting again for a few years.
Yeah. But that's genuinely how I felt. It was quite frustrating.
It's a big criticism of a manager. And it's good, right to make it to his face, but it is like, you would be, if that's how you felt, very frustrating, given that this is your whole life and this is the most important thing in many respects in your life, and you feel we're doing all this and we're not maximising our potential, and this, you know, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit here. Can we just come on?
Yeah, and like, for me, whether it's true or whether it wasn't true is irrelevant, because it was true in my head at that time. And look, this is one thing which I was never able to do. If something was really, really important to me, and if I felt it needed to be said, I just had to say it. I wouldn't be able to sleep if I didn't.
And when you say it afterwards, are you full of self-recrimination and I shouldn't have said it then? Do you get the worst of both worlds? Or did you feel good you said it? Did you think, yeah, no, sod it.
Oh, no.
Let him have it.
Yeah, and it wasn't about letting him have it. It was just about getting it off my chest. Okay. It was more about that. Okay. I didn't care what anyone else really thought, but and I thought it would help, you know. Yeah, maybe I shouldn't have said it. But for me, I couldn't, like, I genuinely, I could never go into a game and spot something at halftime or spot something at the start of the game and be like, no, we'll get on with it, and wake up the following day and be like, oh, I wish I said that.
Is your relationship with him quite strained and damaged and not especially warm thereafter?
No, to be fair, like Brian wouldn't have a close, or not that I know of anyway, wouldn't have had a very close relationship with any of the players. It was always very hands off. We come to the pitch, we do our work, off we go. And it's very different to a professional environment where you might be going to work from 9 to 5 or 9 to 3 and managers tipping around, and it's part of his job to go and engage with people. And we go in for 2 hours, very heavily intense, and we leave. And we have some intermittent meetings throughout the season, but I think myself and Brian, our relationship would have been the same, I'd say, throughout. It was a little bit stronger, I think, towards the middle of my career, where he would have came to me and asked me some questions about what's happening on the pitch, or I would have brought some stuff to him and he would have been like, full trust, just do it. And that was good, but that's not really a relationship. It's all kind of, it was what it needed to be. And like, that's not really why we were there. We were there to be effective. Yeah, but no, like all my conversations with Brian at the start of my career, the end of my career, the middle of my career, they're all the same. It's very sound and pleasant guy to talk to normally, but people just have to, outside of the dressing room, obviously, Brian is a gigantic character in the game. Like, so you have to take that into account too, and you have to just get beyond that you're not talking to Brian Cody, the persona or the character, if you like. You're talking to your manager. You're both on the same team. You both have the same objective. So, like, it doesn't matter if he's been there for a year or for 25 years. The important message is what's important.
There we are. Tense meeting, I would say, between those two.
No, you made a recent parallel, or drew a recent parallel, which I agree with, like the Brian Cody versus Bill Belichick comparison. It's funny, isn't it? Like, So for an amateur sport, the Kilkenny players and Brian Cody seem to have a very professional, business-like relationship. Like, it's like they were in the end, when it all shakes down, they were probably good for each other, but they didn't all agree with the processes. And I think that's been borne out with Belichick as well. Like, to arguably the best coach in either's discipline of all time, but the players that play for them, have mixed views or mixed opinions, mixed memories, certainly.
Yeah.
It's hard, isn't it, though, if you're Brian Cody and you start trying to implement David Fitzgerald stuff. People might not like that as well if you're a Kilkenny player and you're thinking, let's just go and beat this team. You're overthinking it.
Yeah.
And I know Cody maybe wouldn't have wanted to have done that anyway, and he really lent into the whole game, took on a life of its own. It seemed to how he saw it, especially when from Kilkenny, and he obviously had loads of success. So you wonder, did they need to do anything differently either? Maybe teams did get closer than they should have. I don't know. It's hard to know in hindsight.
It's actually Alex Ferguson as well. Like, as the years go by, people look back at his tactics in big games and think, well, it's a little limited compared to the intricacy of modern tactics. But like, he was very much of the opinion that, it's there's a mental battle to be won as well. And he tried to get his teams in the best way to win that battle. And then the game would look after itself.
He certainly regrets not man-marking Messi, which saw with Jisung Park in one of those Champions League finals.
Yeah, and Rooney, when he used to do that excellent column for the Times, would just, whenever he'd just draw on those examples every now and then, like, Jesus, I would have felt we were outnumbered, this kind of thing. And so it was obviously a prevailing thing amongst players in that squad. But it's hard. Winning is a cure for a lot.
Absolutely. And it would be wrong to say Hogan does not represent the fact that Cody did a hell of a lot right too.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. Like, there's a reason they won what they won too. So that's us done. All of those interviews are, if any of them have whetted the appetite, they're all available in full. Just scroll down through the podcast feed and you'll generally see them. That's us done for today. We are back to business tomorrow. We will bring you a football show building up to the weekend's Premier League action. Talk about the games just gone.
Yeah, and Liverpool Man United Sunday.
Ooh, Kildare Galway Sunday. We'll get to see the new rules between two inter-county teams. They're charging 15 quid in.
Are you going?
As we record, I don't know. I don't think so. But I suspect we will talk to somebody on the show who was at the game, be it Colin Keys or Donegal Boyle or Conor McKeown. Someone from this fine establishment will be at the game.
Yeah. Well, as you know, Derry are playing Tyrone, and Derry have a new manager that we're probably scheduling to talk about in the new year.
Any day now.
And he's from Tyrone, so if we do need an angle, I'm willing to talk about it.
We'll try and get to it.
Yeah.
Right after Matt Damon.
Well, is Kildare Go is on the 5th of January.
Yes.
Really, yeah?
Yeah.
Jesus. Enjoy your Christmas dinner, lads.
Yeah.
But now.
Yeah.
No rest for the wicked.
No. Well, listen, the Donegal boys are tanned, fit, raring to go, ready for championship.
Oh, but we won't see them getting ready because they've got a new big fence up around their training pitch as well. I don't know if you saw this circulating.
Did see this, yeah.
For the holidays.
Did see this.
Another good thing in Richie Hogan's book, but we're not going to play it. You're going to have to read it. But his experience of a wall in DCU.
Jim Gavin, DCU offence. I mean, worth going back again. Alrighty, fellas, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.